You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. I have a lot of really cool friends who do a lot of really cool things. I wanted to make it a goal to sit down with these friends and spend about 15 minutes or so getting to know them better and find out about their past, present, and their future. The result is this show. My name is Grant Baciocco, and this is 15 Minutes With. John deHaas is a musician, composer, musical director, accompanist, and one of my very, very best friends. Welcome to 15 Minutes With.
Thank you, Grant. Good to be here.
It's great to have you here. So let's start way back at the beginning. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Euclid, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland. It's on the east side. Yeah.
And what age did you what's the first time in your life you remember getting into something creative?
I started taking piano lessons in first grade, and I took them all through grade school, first through eighth grade. I used to do shows. I remember I was in Mary Poppins when I was in fourth grade, I believe. And I started to do a couple theater things when I was younger, and I love theater a lot. That's really what I got into. My first real show that I really decided I really loved theater was freshman year of high school. I did Pippin. And then I decided that's really what I would do with my life, is to do musical theater.
And were you still taking piano at that time?
No, I'd stopped. Once I got to high school, I stopped taking piano lessons because I was just too busy with schoolwork and everything. I just kept playing on my own. So I always say to people, if I kept taking lessons, I would be at Carnegie Hall, because I kept playing, but I just didn't practice as much. But I think I did pretty well.
And you started piano lessons in first grade. Was that your choice, or did your parents?
No, my parents wanted me to take piano lessons. I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and it's a big musical family. And my oldest sister played piano, so they wanted me to learn to play piano. So I took lessons for many years. So
when you were in high school, were you involved in the theater all throughout high school?
Yes, I was in musicals all 4 years. I was in plays a couple years, and I was also in the choir all 4 years as well. And I played piano, played a lot of piano, so I was the accompanist for auditions and stuff like that. But I was actually in the shows. Yeah, I was on all the musicals and all the plays.
Playing piano, were you in the school jazz band, or did you?
No, I didn't do. No, because I wasn't in the jazz band. I was in the choir, so I played for a couple choir things. But I wasn't really into the jazz band, and I didn't get into that till actually in college. I played in the jazz band in my college, just because they needed a piano player, and I was like, sure, I'll do it. And it was funny because I go to these rehearsals, and the band leader would spend a lot of time working with the sax players or the horns or whatever, and very little time working with the rhythm section. So he'd run something and say, okay, stop, let's run the sax stuff. And so I put my head down, and I usually I'd fall asleep. So I got the narcolepsy award from my college jazz band, because I used to fall asleep during rehearsals because they just didn't use us much. So. And
when you went to school, was your focus music?
In college?
Yeah.
No, actually I got a BA in communications.
Communication.
Yeah, because it was funny. I wanted to study music, but then part of me was like, I didn't want to study it, and then get there and have to spend all my time learning music and practicing and studying it. That I would lose my love of it.
Right.
And then get out of college and be like, ugh, this drives me crazy. I don't want to do this, and then have nothing to fall back on. So instead, I did a lot of theater music on the side, but got a BA in communications. And I've never used it. 30 years out of college, I've never used my degree. So that was good. Good, well worth my 4 years in college.
Did you ever have a interest? Were you in? Did you start your own rock band or something? Did you ever do that kind of thing?
I was in it. We were in a family rock band. My 2 sisters and 2 older brothers, and I think it was called Trapped. Trapt. Yeah, for a couple of years we did that.
Not a metaphor for your family at all.
Not at all. And it was all cover songs, but I mean, you don't know conflict till you've been in a family band. we did a couple of gigs, but that was it. It was like, wow. And because we're all different levels of abilities and commitments, and after a couple of years we're like, this is not going to work out. So
what kind of cover songs did you play? Just modern rock?
Back then, our most modern song was Every Breath You Take by The Police, because it just came out. And we did Can't Stop the World by the Go-Go's, because I like that song. I don't even know what the songs we did. I Only Want to Be With You, which was a cover that the Eurythmics did before they were Eurythmics. Yeah, stuff like that. Heat Wave, Linda Ronstadt, stuff like that.
And where were your gigs like? What did you play?
We played
bar mitzvahs?
No, we played the Euclid Community Festival, downtown Euclid. We did that I think once we did a high school graduation party maybe, and then some bar. I think we only did like 3 or 4 gigs. It was very few, and that was it.
Now, this isn't necessarily creative, but when did your love of roller coasters start? Was that at a young age?
It started in grade school. I grew up in Euclid, Ohio, and we were about an hour from Cedar Point, which is probably the world's top amusement park. And so we go every summer, and I loved going to Cedar Point. Loved doing the rides and stuff. And about 7th or 8th grade, I actually got over my fear of roller coasters, and then just started riding them and just really got into it. And I joined a couple different coaster clubs, and all through high school, did a couple of coaster trips, mostly Ohio, Pennsylvania. And then we got to college, did some more. And then since then, I've probably been on over 500 coasters, like worldwide. I worked in Australia and Japan and all over the country. So now it's basically, it's a hobby. I really like it, really enjoy it. I'm glad. I live in Orlando, Florida now. So the coasters are basically there every day of the week.
And you worked at Cedar Point, didn't you?
Yeah, I worked there for 5 years, 86 through 90. I played piano. That was my first professional show at the Lusty Lil's Golden Palace Theater. It was a vaudeville show. So I did that for 2 years. Did the country show for a year. Did a big band show for a year. And then did a country show for my 5th year. And then went back in 2000, actually wrote and directed a show for them, a country show.
And what was that show called?
Hot Country Nights.
And was it just like cover songs?
It was all country stuff. It was all popular, whatever.
So you mentioned you've worked all over the world. Can you talk about some of those gigs?
Yeah, well, basically, so in college, I was went to John Carroll University in Cleveland, Ohio, got a degree in communications, and in '86 started working at Cedar Point. So I worked there '86 through '90, and after graduating in '87, then like that next year, I was on a cruise ship for a year, and then went back to Cedar Point, and then did I forgot what was after that, '86, '88. Moved down to Florida for a couple months, worked at Disney World, came back up to Ohio, then moved down to Kentucky, did a show there at this brewery entertainment complex, came back to Cedar Point, and then 91, I just worked at the Ritz-Carlton, played piano there. 92 through 94, I was doing summer stock in the Poconos, and then 94 through 97, I worked at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, Virginia, as a vocal supervisor for shows. So I basically wrote and directed shows for 4 years there. Moved to New York City in 98 for like a year, 98, 99. And then 99 moved to Orlando. I've been there ever since. I've been with Walt Disney Company for 17 years now, playing piano for them. And while I was there, I also worked for Universal Studios in Florida. I opened Universal Studios Japan in 2001. I also worked for SeaWorld and worked for Busch Gardens, Tampa. I think that's all the parks I've worked at. Yeah.
So it seems that theme parks are, you've worked at a lot of different theme parks.
Yes, I have.
What is appealing to you about working at the theme parks? I mean, is the roller coasters, or why do you like working at the theme parks?
I love the coasters. So it's nice having to be able to do a show and then be able to take time off in between shows or after shows and riding a coaster or doing a water ride or doing whatever. It's kind of like the best of both worlds. I get to do my theater, music, whatever, and then when I'm not doing that, I can play in the park. So at Cedar Point, it was fun because it was just everyone was there. They're all college-age kids, and it was kind of like a summer getaway thing. And we'd all work hard, and then we'd all play hard. It was a lot of fun, and we all support each other. So you go do a show, and you tell other people from other shows they come to see your show, and vice versa. Then I went down to Busch Gardens. It was more of a longer season, 7 or 8 months long. So it was still that camaraderie, but not as much. So it was more like a job. You go do your shows, then you go back to your apartment. At Cedar Point, you live right there. You live right there at the park.
Yeah.
There was apartments and dorms. Then when I got down to Disney, it was definitely a job. It's like you go and you do your show, you go home. I mean, sometimes you go see other people's shows, but it just became a job. And it's different. It's not good or bad. It's just different.
Yeah.
So, and I love working for Disney now because I can, when I'm not working, I can go in the parks or do whatever and, get to visit, see what's new and just.
Yeah. Well, you and I just did a show together at the Orlando Fringe, and
a huge hit.
A huge hit show at the Orlando Fringe. But this was not your first go-round at the Orlando Fringe.
No.
You have been there for 15 years. So why don't you talk about how you got into that and your experience with the Orlando Fringe?
I moved to Orlando, like I said, 99. And I didn't go to my first Fringe until I think 2000, 2001. And back then the Fringe was held downtown Orlando in like storefronts and converted stores and whatever. And I saw a couple shows. I thought, this is fun. And then in 2003, I thought I should do a show that I've written. I've written a couple musicals, and one of the shows I wrote was called Theme Park Diva. It was a musical I wrote in '97 at Busch Gardens, Virginia, as kind of a end of season skit we did at the awards banquet or whatever. And it was just a short half-hour kind of parody of working in theme parks and doing shows and whatever. And so I kind of worked on that and adapted and added some more songs. So I did that in 2003, downtown Orlando, and then since then I've done 12, 15 other shows at the Fringe. I've music directed some shows, Edges, title of show, When Pigs Fly. Some other original stuff. I did a show I wrote called Tappin' and Yappin' a couple years ago. I did a musical song cycle called Just This Once last year, which won the the Critics' Choice Award for Best Original Score. And that show I actually wrote back in '95 when I was at Busch Gardens. So it's like a song cycle. So I've done a lot of Fringe shows in Orlando, and then I met you, and I thought totally would be perfect for the Orlando Fringe.
Yeah, and it was.
Yeah.
He was perfect for Orlando Fringe. Now, another thing you do is you also work with a lot of high schools and younger kids. Can you talk about doing that?
Well, I work with one high school.
Okay.
I've done a couple of things with other high schools, but mostly I work with West Orange High School in Ocoee, Florida. And it is a public school that has an amazing theater program. And the director, Ken Rush, has just done amazing work with these kids. And then, I don't know, it was probably 5-6 years ago, they called me and said, I worked with Tara Whitman, who was another teacher there. She was a choreographer, and she's like, do you want a music director doing Jekyll and Hyde? Or Hairspray was first. Yeah, Hairspray was the first one. I said, you want to help music direct? It's like, sure. So that was the first show I music directed for them. And then since then, I've done probably 10 other shows. And Jekyll and Hyde ended up being picked for state, went to Tampa, performed there. A couple years ago, Annie Gage Graham was also picked for state. And the two leads in that went to the Jimmy Awards in New York City, which is a competition for the best, basically, high school theater kids in the country. And this past year, we just did Mary Poppins and Into the Woods, and our lead from both those shows, a girl named Emma, is in New York right now doing the Jimmy Awards. So it's pretty great school, and the kids are it's great working with high school kids because they're so committed to doing anything you ask of them, without saying, when are we going to get a break, or am I getting paid for this? They want to do it because they love theater, which is just a great way to work with people.
Yeah. Now, when we're talking about your writing, do you have sort of a writing process? Like, do you sit down and go, I'm going to write in this musical today, or do you write typing out on the computer? Do you write longhand? What's your process?
It's funny. Usually, like, an idea will come to me, and I got the worst attention span and patience, and so I'll write something really quickly. So when I did Theme Park Diva, I was literally sitting there watching a show at Busch Gardens, and this idea came to me. I was like, I should do a parody of theme park shows. And as I was watching this 25-minute show, I wrote down notes of what I wanted the show to be. I wrote down song titles. I started writing some song lyrics, and then within, I'd say, a couple days, it was done. Like, rough, very rough, but I had the idea of what I wanted to do with the show. So that's basically how I work. I work pretty quickly. With Just This Once, the song cycle was the same thing. I was on tour with Busch Gardens, and the idea came to me that doing this, I was just turning 30 at the time, so I was going to write a song or two about that, what the feeling was like. And all of a sudden, one song turned into like 15. I just wrote a bunch of lyrics down, and then went back and kind of put some to music. Some were just horrible. I didn't do anything with them. So yeah, I kind of worked quickly like that. I also did a musical parody of Halloween, the John Carpenter film. And that one, I had an idea for that and mentioned it to a friend of mine. He's like, we can put it in our theater. I was like, when? He's like, this fall. And this was like June. He told me this, and the theater was like for October. So I was like, oh, crap. So that one, I kind of wrote really quickly and then spent a good time on the arrangements and stuff because I wrote it for piano and cello. So I don't sit down. Some people sit down every day for like 2 hours and write. It doesn't work like that for me because I can't just, force myself to create. If I have stuff to do, if I've got shows or songs that need to be arranged, I'll force myself to do that at the computer. And that stuff I do on the computer. I use Finale to arrange the music. As far as the scripts and stuff, I'll just sit at my laptop or whatever and just kind of write dialogue or just write a rough whatever. And then usually someone once said, plays aren't written, they're rewritten. or musicals aren't written, something like that. So I'll write something down, and instead of trying to say, oh, is this the perfect way to say it, I would just write it down and then go back and correct it and fix it, and then go back again and think, is this funny? No, I'll take this out. Is this good? So that's usually how I work. My process is pretty scattered like that. Like right now I'm working on a show for next year that I had an idea for a couple years ago. But I haven't worked on it in a couple weeks now. It's just sitting there, but I know I'm going to go back to it like in a day or two and be like, oh, cool, I should do this. And all of a sudden I'll write a ton of stuff for it. Another show I had an idea for called After Prom. It's a musical 10 years ago at least. And I wrote a couple songs for that, wrote part of the script, and it's just been sitting there. So that means I need to get back to that too and finish that. So lots of half-done projects in my repertoire.
Well, but they eventually get done.
They do eventually, yes.
Well, we're wrapping up here, so I just wanted to ask, as a roller coaster aficionado, what is your favorite roller coaster in all the ones you've ridden?
Oh, geez. Millennium Force, Cedar Point, is my favorite. And the coaster purists will be like, oh, that's such a popular title or whatever. It's like, well, I like it. It's smooth, it's fast, it's fun. The location, Cedar Point's built on a peninsula, so 3 sides of the park are surrounded by water. So when you go up the first hill, you look to the left, and there's water. Look straight ahead of you, more park, but water. Look to the right, more park and more water. So it's just a great location. It's fast, it's fun. Anything I can ride over and over is great. I've been on some really intense coasters. We rode last year. We rode
X2 or
X2
whatever.
at Magic Mountain.
That was the worst
I'd
experience
rather
of my
hit
life.
myself on the head with a baseball bat than ride that piece
Thanks
of crap
for taking
again.
me on that one.
Oh man, never again.
Yeah.
That's just me though. You can love it if you want, but I don't like it.
I don't love it. Well, John, if people want to check you out online, where can they go?
Boy, where can they find me? I have, if you go to cdbaby.com, I've got 4 CDs. I got 6 CDs for sale there. I also do New Age piano, because why stick to musical theater when you can do New Age? So I have 3 CDs there for sale, 2 or 3 for sale. I've got the soundtrack to Halloween the Musical there. I've got Tappin' and Yappin' there. Soon, Just This Once we finish recording it, will be there. I need Grant apparently is going to build me an amazing website one of these days. But right now you can find me on Facebook,
Twitter.
Twitter, Twitter, the John B. deHaas. Yeah, find me on Twitter. That's more fun. Facebook's a little too personal. And I write snarky stuff all the time.
Yeah. Well, John, thank you very much for talking to me today. I appreciate it.
It's been a true pleasure. Thank you, Grant.
John B. deHaas is a musician, composer, and musical director, and was today's guest on 15 Minutes With. To check out John's music, head on over to cdbaby.com and search for John B. deHaas. And that last name is spelled DEHAAS. You can also follow John on Twitter, where his username is TheJohnBDeHaas. 15 Minutes With on the GrantCast is a production of Saturday Morning Media and made possible by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who've gone to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a monthly donation for as little as $1 a month. Huge thanks to Shay Stewart, Mer Lafferty, Jeff Peterson, Dale Gadania, Stephen Staver, Jackie Klimo, Melissa Crawford, Chuck, Matthew Wayne Selznick, Dave Slusher of the Evil Genius Chronicles, Mike Coughlin, Dorothy Baciocco, John D., Kathy Crawford, Brian Greer, Carrie Whitney, Chuck Tomasi, Chris Foster, Stephen Ing, Clinton of ComedyForecast.com, Vicky DeVries, Mike Wabshall, Twitter user Butts in Gear, a.k.a. Wildcat, and new patron Eve Cunning. If you'd like to support this show and the other fun content from Saturday Morning Media, become a patron. Head on over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media. That's patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up your donation today. You can also tell a friend about the show or leave the show a review on iTunes. And if you have feedback for the show, you can send it to me directly at grant@throwingtoasters.com or get in touch via Twitter, where my username is ToasterBoy. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time right here on the GrantCast. The GrantCast is copyright 2016 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Baciocco, executive producer. All rights reserved. www.SaturdayMorningMedia.com. You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.